ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जायमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिके। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा। रीडिंग फ्रॉम श्रीमद् भागवतम by his divine grace AC Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. We are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 32, Entanglement in Fruitive Activities. So currently we are at the second section of this chapter, where there is a description of Hiranyagarbha worshippers. Text 12. आद्यस्थिरचराणां यो वेदगर्भसहर्षिभिः योगैश्वरै कुमाराद्यैः सिद्धैर्योगप्रवर्तकैः वेद्याद्भिमानेन निस्सङ्गेन नापि कर्मणा कर्तृत्वात् सगुणं ब्रह्म पुरुषं पुरुषर्षभम् ससंवृत्य पुनः काले कालेन ऐश्वरे मूर्तिना जाते गुणव्यतिकरे यथा पूर्वं प्रजायते ऐश्वर्यं पारमेष्ठ्यं च तेऽपि धर्मविनिर्मितं निषेव्य पुनरायन्ति गुणव्यतिकरे सति. Translation.
My dear mother, someone may worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead with a special self-interest. But even demigods such as Lord Brahma, great sages such as Sanat Kumara, and great munis such as Marichi have to come back to the material world again at the time of creation. When the interaction of the three modes of material nature begins, Brahma, who is the creator of this cosmic manifestation and who is full of Vedic knowledge, and the great sages who are the authors of the spiritual path and the yoga system come back under the influence of the time and of the time factor. They are liberated by their non-fruitive activities and they attain the first incarnation of the Purusha. But at the time of creation, they come back in exactly the same forms and position as they had previously. Purport. That Brahma becomes liberated is known to everyone, but he cannot liberate his devotees. Demigods like Brahma and Lord Shiva cannot give liberation to any living entity. As it is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, only one who surrenders unto Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, can be liberated from the clutches of Maya. Brahma is called here Adyasthira Charanam. He is the original first created living entity. And after his own birth, he creates the entire cosmic manifestation. He was fully instructed in the matter of creation by the Supreme Lord. Here he is called Veda Garbha, which means that he knows the complete purpose of the Vedas. He is always accompanied by such great personalities as Marichi, Kashyapa, and the seven sages, as well as the great mystic yogis, the Kumaras, and many other spiritually advanced living entities. But he has his own interests separate from the Lord's. Veda Drishtya means that Brahma sometimes thinks that he is independent of the Supreme Lord, or he thinks of himself as one of the three equally independent incarnations. Brahma is entrusted with creation, Vishnu maintains, and Rudra, Lord Shiva, destroys. The three of them are understood to be incarnations of the Supreme Lord in charge of the three different material modes of nature, but none of them is independent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Here the word Veda Drishtya occurs because Brahma has a slight inclination to think that he is as independent as Rudra. Sometimes Brahma thinks that he is independent of the Supreme Lord, and the worshipper also thinks that Brahma is independent. For this reason, after the destruction of this material world, when there is again creation by the interaction of the material modes of nature, Brahma comes back. Although Brahma reaches the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the first Purusha incarnation, Mahavishnu, who is full with transcendental qualities, he cannot stay in the spiritual world. The specific significance of its coming back may be noted. Brahma and the great rishis and the great master of yoga, Shiva, are not ordinary living entities. They are very powerful and have all the perfections of mystic yoga. But still, they have an inclination to try to become one with the Supreme, and therefore they have to come back. In the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, it is accepted that as long as one thinks that he is equal with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is not completely purified or knowledgeable. In spite of going up to the first Purusha avatar Mahavishnu after the dissolution of this material creation, such personalities again fall down or come back to the material creation. It is a great fall down on the part of the impersonalist to think that the Supreme Lord appears within a material body, and that one should therefore not meditate upon the form of the Supreme, but should meditate instead on the formless. For this particular mistake, even the great mystic yogis or great stalwart transcendentalists also come back again when there is creation. All living entities other than the impersonalist and the monists can directly take to the devotional service in full Krishna consciousness and become liberated by developing transcendental loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such devotional service develops in the degrees of thinking of the Supreme Lord as Master, as Friend, as Son, and at last as Lover. These distinctions in transcendental variegatedness must always be present. Hare Krishna.
Further, Kapila Muni describes now, someone may worship Supreme Personality of Godhead with a special self-interest. Very amazing verse this is. But even demigods like Lord Brahma and the great sages Sanat Kumar and the great Munis Marichi, they have to come back to material world at the time of creation. If even the slightest fault of thinking oneself equal to Supreme Lord, or one thinking oneself to be independent of the Supreme Lord, remains in their minds. And at the time of creation, they come back exactly in the same forms and positions as they had previously in their previous lives. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that at the end of the creation, when there is a pralaya, Brahma goes back to Godhead. Right. Now, here, Brahma going back to Godhead is to be understood in two ways. One thing is Brahmaji visiting the Purusha incarnations, right? Even within the material world, there is a Shveta Dvipa planet where Lord Brahma grows and he prays on the banks of the ocean, of the Milk Ocean. And that is also considered as the spiritual world. Why? Because that is the residence of the Lord. So he goes to the Purusha incarnation, but time to time comes back. Somebody may say, Prabhuji, we say, Yad Gatvana Nivartante Tad Dhama Paramam Mama. Yeah, that is specifically mentioned for the Vaikuntha, which is beyond the Viraja. Right? That is the Vaikuntha beyond Viraja. Now here, because of the Lord's residence, even that is also called as Vaikuntha. Just like, every ISKCON temple, Prabhupada said, all our temples are Vaikuntha. They're in the spiritual atmosphere. Activity is Vaikuntha, but they are situated in the material world. And we go to temple, come home, go to temple, go to office, so on and so forth. Similarly, Lord Brahma, for him the temple is Shvetdeep, planet. He goes to the planet, has darshan of the Lord, has the message of the Lord, again comes back. But that is also considered as going back home, back to Godhead in one way, right? So Brahma becomes liberated, everybody knows, but he cannot liberate his devotees. This is very important. Because the ultimate liberation comes only from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, they themselves being great demigods and the great devotees themselves. How they liberate? They liberate by the process of their recommendation. But the ultimate liberation comes from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's why Lord says, Mameva ye prapadyante. Mam eva. Eva means only the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Correct? So, of course, the recommendation of Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva is so great that there is no question of turning down that recommendation. But technically, the liberation comes only from the Achyuta, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Brahma is called here as Adya Sthira Charanam, that he is the first, original, first created living entity. And he is also called as Veda Garbha. He knows the complete purpose of the Vedas. And his associates are great personalities like Marichi, Kashyapa, and the 7 great sages like Atri, who are having great mystic powers, Chatushkumar. But still, within the life of Brahma, there is Bheda Drishta. Bheda Drishta means Brahma sometimes thinks that he is independent of the Supreme Lord. Slight thought here and there. Just like we saw in Brahma Vimohan Lila. That Brahmaji was thinking, oh, let me test Krishna. And then he was put in illusion. Grand illusion. So the Bheda Drishti that happens only from the slight thought at a time. Even when he was giving benedictions to Hiranyakashipu, Brahmaji went all out to give the benedictions. Right? And that's why sometimes Brahma and the followers of Brahma all the time. See, this is the point. Whatever the leader thinks slightly, the followers will act boldly. And therefore, the thought process of the leader, as we go on, in the higher positions, as in anywhere, right? Anywhere, as we move on in the higher positions, one has to be very, very refined, and one has to be very highly in sync with the higher authorities. More we move on, the struggle is internal, and the surrender has to be very refined. Correct? Struggle has to be very refined. These days, the politics that goes on, especially very funny Maharashtra politics. So, if the leader has something like he wants to become a chief minister, and then Karyakartas will be putting the posters only on the flex and the poster, and they will be, shouting slogans, Mukhyamantri banna chahiye, Mukhyamantri banna. So, whatever is there in the mind of the leader becomes grossly manifest through the followers. Right. And therefore, as we move up the ladder in spiritual life, as we advance in spiritual life, our alignment has to be extremely refined with our, the senior devotees. That needs more surrender at the top. Right. More surrender at the top. So, but there is some Bheda Drishti. And therefore, Brahmaji sometimes and followers of Brahmaji all the time, like Hiranyakashipu, they think that Brahma is separate and he is the Supreme. Or Lord Shiva is separate from or independent of the Supreme Lord and he is the Supreme. And thus, also reaching to the point of back to Godhead, up to the planet of Hiranyagarbha, still they have to come back. And this is the specific significance of coming back. And that's why Srila Prabhupada writes, and therefore, to the degree one is tinged with the consciousness of merging with the Lord, or enjoying independently, or thinking oneself on the same platform, Ariya Krishnena Param Padam Patanti Adho Anadrita Yushmadangreya. And still there is always a tendency to come back. And these are the great fall downs, Prabhupada says, of the impersonalist. And thus, therefore, they think that the Lord appears within the material body, and therefore they do not meditate on the Supreme Lord. And this is how they keep on experimenting until they become fortunate and become Mahatma, Bahunam Janmanamante, Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate. Otherwise, all other living entities, except the impersonalist and the monist, they can take the simple process of devotional service in full Krishna consciousness, become liberated, and go back home, back to Godhead. But for that, one has to be situated in this bhava of Jivera Krishna Das. It is very, very important that one has very clear understanding that there is no tinge of impersonalism or no tinge of being independent of the Supreme Lord. And Prabhupada says, this is how their devotional service will develop in degrees of thinking as the Supreme Lord as master, friend, son, and at last lover. These distinctions in the transcendental variegatedness must always be present. So what is the take home here is that whenever we are practicing devotional service, we should have a very clear idea that there is no question of merging into Brahman. There is no question of becoming one with the Supreme, right? I have a spiritual identity. I have a spiritual relationship with the Lord, spiritual family in the spiritual world. And by practicing my spiritual activities here, my spiritual master will make me placed in my spiritual atmosphere in the next life. This is the simple faith of a devotee, and that is sufficient. And that can outdo all the mental maneuvering of all these yogis and gyanis, where they will be stuck in the material world. Text 16. So section 16 to 21, here the Kardama Muni, Kapila Muni is criticizing Sakama Karma. Okay, so this is the next section, section 3. Text 16. Ye tvaya asakta manah manasa karmaso shraddhayanvitah kurvanti apratishidhnani nityani chapi krishnashah. Translation.
Translation: persons who are too addicted to this material world execute their prescribed duties very nicely and with great faith. They daily perform all such prescribed duties with attachment to the fruitive results. Purport: in this and the following 6 verses, the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam criticizes persons who are too materially attached. It is enjoined in the Vedic scriptures that those who are attached to the enjoyment of material facilities have to sacrifice and undergo certain ritualistic performances. They have to observe certain rules and regulations in their daily lives to be elevated to the heavenly planets. It is stated in this verse that such persons cannot be liberated at any time. Those who worship demigods with the consciousness that each and every demigod is a separate god cannot be elevated to the spiritual world. What to speak of persons who are simply attached to duties for the upliftment of their material condition. Hare Krishna.
Now this section is, Srila Prabhupada says, Śrīmad Bhāgavatam criticizes the persons who are too materially attached. So they are determined to enjoy material life. They are determined to enjoy material life. And therefore, with great faith and very nicely, they will conduct their prescribed duties, perform all their duties, their oblations, and then thus they are very attached to the fruitive results. Right? We as a devotee should also perform our duties very well. But the goal is not to enjoy the material world. The goal is to spiritualize our duties and to please the Supreme Lord. That is the difference. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, they are greatly attached to enjoying the material facilities, and therefore they will perform many sacrifices, will undergo many ritualistic performances, and thus they are always desiring to attain heavenly planets. And such people cannot be liberated at any point of time. In fact, Bhagavad Gita, there is a nice verse which describes Moghasha, Mogha Karma, Mogha Jnana. This is a little negative connotation. But before that, there is one verse which describes that. So it describes they are enamored by the flowery language of the Vedas. What is that verse? Talks about the flowery language of the Vedas. That is Prabhupada writes, flowery language. And thus they are
Traigunya Vishaya Veda.
Traigunya Vishaya Veda? No, it's no. That like Vedavadarata Partha Nanyadasteti Vadina. So they are Vedavadarata. And this is how they are such people cannot be liberated at any point of time. The classic example of this is, what is the classic example is, this the husbands of these Dvijapatnis. So they were like determined to enjoy the material world, and the Lord was standing in front of on their gates, Lord Krishna, Balaramji, and still they said, no, they are afraid of Kamsa, and we are happy performing our rituals so that we will eventually attain to Supreme Lord. The Lord is standing on your doorstep. No, they want to eventually attain, first enjoy the heavenly planets and everything else, right? So this is the people. Now this is the condition, Prabhupada writes, of those who are attached, who are performing something in junction to the Vedas. What to speak of those who are performing duties simply for material conditions? So that is, they are very difficult to be liberated. Text 17. Rajasa kuntha manasa kamatmano jitendriyah Pitrun yajanti anudinam gruheshu abhiratashayah. Translation.
Such persons, impelled by the mode of passion, are full of anxieties and always aspire for sense gratification due to uncontrolled senses. They worship the forefathers and are busy day and night, improving the economic condition of their family, social, or national life.
So these are the activities of such people. Such persons impelled by mode of passion, rajasa. And what happens? Kuntha manasa, full of anxiety. Kuntha means anxiety. Vaikuntha means no anxiety. Therefore, it is Vaikuntha. Rajasa, mode of passion. Kuntha manasa, that is anxieties. And thus, kamotmano, always aspiring for sense gratification, because they have never tasted anything beyond the material bodily sense gratification. Param drishtva is not there, right? They are why this ajitendriya? Because of the uncontrolled senses. What they do? Pitrun yajanti anudinam. They worship the forefathers day and night, improving their conditions of their family, social, or national life. Right. Some parts of this may be very familiar to devotees, that we also work to improve our condition. We also do, but the intention is different. Right. There are two things: intensity and intention. In this case, sometimes one may be, like Duryodhana and Arjuna, they are fighting with great intensity, but intention is different. And because of the intention, because of that bhavana, everything becomes Krishna bhavana for Arjuna, and everything becomes, the otherwise bhavana for Duryodhana. So this is the activities and how they are generally placed in. Text 18. Traivargikarte purusha vimukha harimedhasaha kathayam kathayam kathaniyar uruvikramasya madhudvishah. Translation.
Such persons are called Trivargika because they are interested in the three elevating processes. They are averse to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who can give relief to the conditioned soul. They are not interested in the Supreme Personality's pastimes, which are worth hearing because of his transcendental purport. Can somebody please continue reading?
According to Vedic thought, there are four elevating principles, namely religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. Persons who are simply interested in material enjoyment make plans to execute prescribed duties. They are interested in the three elevating processes of religious rituals, economic elevation, and sense enjoyment. By developing their economic condition, they can enjoy material life. Materialistic persons are therefore interested in those elevating processes, which are called Trivargika. Tri means three, Vargika means elevating processes. Such materialistic persons are never attracted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Rather, they are antagonistic towards Him. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is here described as Harimedha, or He who can deliver one from the cycle of birth and death. Materialistic persons are never interested in hearing about the marvelous pastimes of the Lord. They think that they are fictions, and stories, and that the Supreme Godhead is also a man of material nature. They are not fit for advancing in devotional service or Krishna consciousness. Such materialistic persons are interested in newspaper stories, novels, and imaginary dramas. The factual activities of the Lord, such as Lord Krishna's acting in the battle of Kurukshetra, or the activities of the Pandavas, or the Lord's activities in Vrindavan or Dwarka, are related in the Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, which are full of activities of the Lord. But materialistic persons who engage in elevating their position in the material world are not interested in such activities of the Lord. They may be interested in the activities of a great politician or a great rich man of this world, but they are not interested in the transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord.
So such people, they are called as Traivargika, because they are interested only in the three of the four activities. Which are the four activities? Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. They are highly interested in Dharma. Dharma means doing some rituals. Artha, money, they are interested. Kama, they are interested. Moksha, they are absolutely not interested. They are averse to the personality of Godhead, who can give relief to the conditioned soul, and averse to his activities. Very, very beautiful lines here. Kathayam kathaniya urukramasya. Kathaniya means worth hearing, right? Kathaniya. So this is Kathayam Kathaniya Urukramasya. These are the worth hearing. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, of the four elevating principles, they are interested in three. And by developing economic conditions, they want to enjoy the material life, and therefore they are called as Traivaragika. They are interested in only three processes of elevations. They are not interested in Lord Hari, and they are very, very agnostic, antagonistic against the message of Lord Hari. So as such good people, this is a great paradox, Sometimes you see such good people, but they hardly become devotee. Even if they become to spiritual life, it is more like a devotional entertainment, spiritual entertainment they want to have. Because they have LIC, they have, for protecting the life, they have some health insurance policy, they have bank balance also. A good husband, wife, children, everything is there. Prabhuji, I'm protected from all sides, spiritually also. If God exists, then, I'm doing something for, just for some diversification. I will do something to God also, so that if he exists, he will protect me also. So very, very laid back, relaxed attitude towards, deeply interested in their own lives, and good people. And there is another point. It's very, very good people, but hardly they are on the path of surrender to the Supreme Lord. Right. They are never interested in the marvelous pastimes of the Supreme Lord. As Kulashekara says this, Ascharya metaddi manushya loke, sudham parityajya visham pibanti, namani narayana gocharani, tyaktva anyavacha kuhaka vadanti. That they are interested in many other things, like reading newspaper, novels, stories, dramas, books after books. You will be surprised to know people read, phenomenally people read. But if you take Bhagavad Gita, Neend aata hai Prabhuji. Bhagavatam, mythology. So they are not interested in the pastimes of the Lord, the factual activities of the Lord in Kurukshetra, activities of the Pandavas, the great devotees of the Lord, activities of Vrindavan, Dwarka. But such people, they are not interested in all these Hari Katha or Hari activities, which are really Kathaniya. Kathaniya means worth discussing and worth glorifying. They are interested in activities of great politician. Like politics, they will greatly they are interested, isne isko ye kiya. Look at the Jagdish Dhangad plot recently. This Vice President of India, he plotted in a very subtle way to take down Modi government. This just happened just 8 days back. And then he was made to resign, and the whole thing. So they are interested in the activities of the politics or some rich man in the world. How this Jeff Bezos divorce is taking place, Bill Gates is doing this, that. But not interested in the activities, the transcendental activities of Supreme Lord. Correct. This is very important. So these are the, and see, one thing is to such people. One another thing is one has to identify these traits in ourselves also, that when we meet devotees, this I'm talking more for myself. So when I meet devotees, I should be aware what we are speaking. Is it always that we are just discussing politics or yoga or health or this or that? What is the topic of discussion when I meet a devotee? This is very important point, right? Because devotee is kalpataru. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha. Whatever topic we'll pick up, you will get those kind of fruits only. And therefore, with the association of devotees, one should be very clear that, what kind of association, when we are, sometimes, this happens because we are so friendly. Naturally, we think that, okay, Krishna consciousness naturally takes a back seat, and that's a trap. I am speaking this more for myself than any upadesh to anybody. I'm just reminding myself that whenever we speak devotee, one devotee, I told him that, Prabhuji, when we meet, let us discuss at least 2 minutes of some Krishna Katha. Radhesham Prabhu has this, the rule that whenever you meet a devotee, whenever any even management meeting happens, it should begin with some Krishna Katha. At least 5 minutes of some sharing of such wonderful points from the purports, the golden realizations of Srila Prabhupada and other things that we should begin with. So this is how the person is interested, is Traivargika. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you,
Jai.
Prabhupada. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada.
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Hare
everyone.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Prabhupada.